Stop buying nitrogen to green up your lawn. I'm serious. You've been told that deep color comes from feeding it nitrogen 4 times a season. Wrong. Nitrogen doesn't make grass green. It makes grass grow, which means more mowing, more thatch, and a lawn that's hungry again in 6 weeks. That's not an accident. That's the business model the fertilizer companies built after the war. The actual color comes from iron. A single foliar iron spray gives you a darker green in 3 days than a full bag of fertilizer gives you in a month. I fought this the wrong way for years before a turf specialist set me straight. Stay with me, because I'll show you the exact morning temperature window where that one spray locks in and the color holds for weeks. Here's the thing. To understand why nobody told you about iron, you have to look at where the fertilizer business actually came from. During World War II, this country built enormous factories to produce ammonium nitrate. That's a munition. It's what fills bombs. We built that capacity on the Haber-Bosch process, synthetic nitrogen, manufactured at industrial scale to win a war. Then 1945 came. The war ended, and all those plants still ran. So the industry found a new buyer. You. They took the same synthetic nitrogen they'd been packing into explosives, and they packed it into bags for your lawn and your farm. Same chemical. I want to be straight with you about how literally I mean that. On April 16, 1947, a ship loaded with ammonium nitrate fertilizer caught fire in the port of Texas City, right here in this state. It detonated. It killed roughly 581 people. The single deadliest industrial accident in American history. And that cargo wasn't labeled a weapon. It was labeled fertilizer. That's what they started spreading on lawns. And to keep those factories running, they needed you to buy it again and again. So they engineered the 4-step program. Feed it 4 times a season, every season, forever. That wasn't agronomy. That was a sales calendar. Here's what it cost you. 4 nitrogen applications a year. $200 and up every season. More mowing because nitrogen forces growth. Thatch buildup. Fungal disease that excess nitrogen feeds. And a lawn that's hungry again in 6 weeks. Right on schedule, so you reach for the next bag. Iron, the nutrient that actually controls color, got buried. Not because it doesn't work, because you can't sell it on a schedule. Now let me tell you how I found this out, because I did this wrong for years. Down here in Texas, I had Bermuda that kept going pale. Yellow-green, washed out, no depth to the color, and I did exactly what the bag told me. I hit it with more nitrogen. The grass would grow like crazy. I'd be mowing twice a week, but it stayed pale, so I'd feed it again. More growth. Still pale. I was right there with you, fighting it the only way I'd been taught. I'd spent a small fortune on bags of nitrogen chasing a color problem that nitrogen could never touch. Twice a week mowing, all that clipping cleanup, and the lawn never got the depth I wanted. The harder I worked it, the worse the trade got. Then a turf specialist at my local extension office looked at it and told me something that reset everything. She said, "Larry, that's not a nitrogen problem. That's iron chlorosis. Your soil's the problem. North Texas clay runs high pH, alkaline, and that high pH locks iron up tight." She pointed me to a foliar iron spray. You feed it through the leaf. 3 days later, that Bermuda went from washed-out yellow-green to a deep, almost blue-green color I'd been chasing for years, with bags of nitrogen. 3 days. That's the technique. Foliar iron. And it's the kind of thing the 4-step program was never going to print on the bag. Here's why it works, because once you understand the mechanism, you'll never look at a bag of fertilizer the same way. Color in a grass plant comes from chlorophyll. That's the green pigment. And here's the part that surprised me. The chlorophyll molecule itself doesn't contain a single atom of iron. Not one. But the plant cannot build chlorophyll without iron. Iron is the catalyst. It's the cofactor that runs the assembly line. No iron, no chlorophyll, no color. Simple as that. So when a lawn runs short on iron, you see it in a very specific pattern. The tissue between the leaf veins goes yellow, while the veins themselves stay green. Turf people call that intervenal chlorosis. Yellow between the veins, green on the veins. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now here's the trap. A lot of soil already has plenty of iron in it. The iron's there. But when your soil pH climbs above 7.0, alkaline, like the heavy clay we've got across half this country, that iron gets locked into a form the roots simply cannot pull up. It's right there, and the grass can't touch it. That's why dumping iron on the ground often does nothing. And that's the whole reason the foliar spray works. You're not feeding the soil. You're spraying it straight onto the leaf blade, and the blade absorbs it directly. You bypass the locked-up soil entirely. That's a mechanism the fertilizer business had no interest in explaining, because it points you away from the bag. All right, let's walk through exactly what you spray and what you'll see. The cheapest option is ferrous sulfate, FeSO4. You're looking at roughly 2 to 4 ounces dissolved in a gallon of water, and that gallon covers about 1,000 square feet. If your soil's really alkaline, high pH, go with a chelated iron instead, FeDH or FeDTPA. Chelated just means the iron's wrapped in a molecule that keeps it available and stable in high pH conditions. Read the label and match it to your situation. And one more thing on the product. You mix it fresh, you don't store it dissolved. Ferrous sulfate will oxidize sitting in the tank. Mix what you need, calibrate your sprayer, spray it that morning. I run mine through a 4-gallon backpack sprayer, and I always wear my goggles, gloves, and respirator. Read the label and respect the chemical, even a cheap one. Here's the math on results. You spray in the morning, and within 24 to 72 hours, that lawn darkens. Not a faint green up. A deep blue-green color, the kind your neighbor stops at the mailbox to ask about, and it holds 3 to 4 weeks off a single application. Now here's the part that ought to make you angry. Ferrous sulfate costs pennies per application. Pennies. Compare that to a multi-step nitrogen program, running $200 and more across a season. A program where the color is just a surge of fast growth that fades in 6 weeks and sends you back to the store. That's exactly the kind of math the 4-step program was built to keep you from running. And here's where it gets interesting. Because nitrogen doesn't just fail to fix this. It makes it worse. When you pour nitrogen on a lawn that's short on iron, you force a flush of fast new growth. All that new tissue needs iron too, so you're spreading the same limited iron across more and more plant. You dilute it. The chlorosis gets worse, not better. That pale lawn you keep feeding is getting paler because you're feeding it. So that quick green you get from a bag, that's not color. That's just a wave of new blades, soft and fast, masking a deficiency underneath. Mow it down and the pale comes right back. Now, I want to be honest with you. Iron is your color tool. Nitrogen still has a job. A small amount drives density, fills the lawn in, makes it thick. A thick lawn is a fortress against weeds, so you use a little nitrogen for density. You just never use it for color, because color was never its job. And one warning, iron stains. It'll stain concrete, brick, your driveway, rust orange. Keep it off your hardscape. That's a detail the 4-step bag never bothered to mention either. Now, before we keep going, I want to tell you about something. If everything I just showed you is clicking, if you're starting to realize the basics you were handed about your lawn were backwards, then you're going to understand the thesis of my book. It's called Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol. It's $17, and it's over at larrysgardenbooks.com. Chapter 1 is titled, Why Everything You Know About Weeds is Wrong, and it makes the same case I just made about color, that a thick, healthy lawn is the real foundation that crowds weeds out. No chemicals required. If you're exhausted by the cycle, and you want a permanent fix instead of another one-off tip, that's where it starts. If you're watching on your TV, Grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. If you're on your phone or laptop already, the link's right in the description. Take your time finding it. No rush, I'll be right here. So why iron specifically? Why bury this one nutrient? Follow the money. A bag of ferrous sulfate runs you about $15 to $20, and it lasts a homeowner years. There is no recurring revenue in that. None. You buy it once and the fertilizer industry never sees you again. Nitrogen is the opposite. Your lawn burns through it in about 6 weeks. Then it's gone, and you're back at the store for another bag. That's not a flaw in the product. That's the feature. That recurring 6-week burn is the entire engine of the 4-step program. It's designed to be consumed and repurchased, season after season, the same way those wartime plants needed a buyer that came back every month. A cheap iron spray you mix in a backpack sprayer doesn't fit that model at all. You can't package it into a granular spreader program. You can't put it on a feeding calendar. It just works, quietly, for pennies, and then it leaves you alone. From a retail standpoint, that's a terrible product, so it got left off the shelf and out of the conversation. Now I want to be fair, because you're smart enough to spot a half-truth. Your lawn does need some nitrogen. Modest amounts for density and overall health. Iron is not a total replacement for feeding your lawn, and anybody who tells you that is selling you something too. The lie was never use nitrogen. The lie was nitrogen is what makes it green. That one-word swap cost you years. Years of overpaying. Years of extra mowing. Years of fighting thatch and fungal disease that the excess nitrogen caused in the first place. You were sold the problem and the symptom in the same bag. Now stay with me, because here's the detail that separates a one-day color pop from color that holds for weeks. It's temperature. My rule after 30 years, always read the air and soil temperature before you spray anything. For foliar iron, the sweet spot is early morning, air temperature sitting right between 60 and 70 degrees. You've got some room, anywhere from about 50 to 80 will work. But that 60 to 70 window in the morning is where it locks in. Below 50, the leaf cuticle takes the iron up too slowly and most of it's wasted. Above 80 to 85, the iron oxidizes right on the blade before the plant can absorb it. And now you've got leaf tip burn, staining, and lousy uptake for your trouble. So you spray early onto blades that are still damp with dew. Then you leave it alone. No mowing, no watering for 24 to 48 hours. That's the part most homeowners skip, and it's why they get mediocre results. You let the leaf drink it in. Water too soon, and you wash it down into that pH-locked soil where the grass can't use it. The cool morning, the damp blade, the patience, that's what makes the color hold. Before I let you go, now you've got the iron knowledge the 4-step bag was never going to give you. But color is just one piece. Keeping a lawn dark, thick, and weed-free all year takes a system. And that's Chapter 9 of the book, The No-Weed Garden Year-Round. It lays out the seasonal calendar, what to do spring, summer, and fall, so that darker, denser lawn stays the foundation that keeps weeds crowded out without chemicals, and without you out there every weekend. It's the permanent fix I wish someone had handed me 20 years ago, not another one-off tip. Same place, larrysgardenbooks.com, $17. If you're on the TV, go ahead and aim your phone at the QR code now, or tap the link in the description if you're already on your phone. Take a second to pull it up. I'll wait. All right, here's the takeaway. It's iron, not nitrogen, that makes your lawn that deep blue-green. One foliar spray in that cool morning temperature window, and the color holds for weeks. Now you can get a darker lawn for pennies, off the recurring nitrogen treadmill they built after the war. Next time I'll show you another one they'd rather you didn't run. Why your pre-emergent timing is set by soil temperature, not the calendar on the wall, and why getting that one date right is the whole battle. I'll see you in the next one.